Hello and welcome. That was Janis Joplin singing her famous song, "Oh Lord, Won't You Buy Me a Mercedes-Benz." This is Beverly Fells Joans, the Silver Fox of Consciousness, coming to you today with another fabulous, wonderful reading from the book Manifestations, True Stories of Bringing the Imagined into Reality. Had a person who asked me, "Bev, why are you taking the time to read these stories out of the book?" Well, I think I've mentioned many times that you see people on the internet, on Instagram and Twitter and YouTube, and they're always talking about how I manifested $10,000, how I manifested this fabulous house, how I manifested this. And they start talking to you about those things. And a lot of times when I go looking at them, the way they acquired them was not truly in what I sense to be a manifestation. A lot of times when they start talking to you and trying to tell you and entice you to join their program so that you can learn how to do the same thing, what I've found is that it's really common sense. Now, I'm not knocking common sense, understand that, because there's things that we still have to do, as I've said in many of my broadcasts. There are many examples of people just, telling you about they're using this program or this system. The one woman who said she had manifested a ton of money, well, she did the program that we've heard about of paying off our bills and paying one at a time, paying the smallest one, and then start paying the next higher one and the next higher one. And she didn't really, she started talking, it wasn't about manifesting and bringing things into her life that makes life better. To me, had she said, "Let me tell you about this wonderful job that I visualized and I meditated on and I researched and all of this and how it came into her life." Those are, for me, when you give me examples like that, like I give you, then this is talking true manifestation. Being able to set up your mind and your willpower, your thoughts in such a way that you bring your subconscious on board, and now on a natural plane, actually not natural, well, it is a natural plane, but on a higher level, on a higher vibration level, in the 0 point field that I've talked about that we're all connected to, things begin to come into your life that allow you, or allow the universe, infinite wisdom, to make things happen in such a way that you can receive that which you're asking for. And so you're probably wondering initially, okay, why did you do this song in the beginning? Well, I'm going to tell you that in a moment. But for those of you who are new to this program, please thank you. I want to thank you for listening in. I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy day to listen to the show. Whether you're driving a car, or you're sitting at your desk, or you're doing whatever, my show isn't one that's a mindless show. Those are the shows with music. So if you're just puttering in the yard, or doing some cleaning around the house, okay, this will work, because you can listen and hear and understand. If you like this, I'd appreciate it very much if you give it a thumbs up or a positive review and subscribe, because I'm always uploading something that is beneficial for you. Now, this is the Beverly Fells Joans Show. This is the podcast. But on on YouTube, there is also Eclectic Alchemy on this same channel. And on that one, I talk about a number of things. And one of them is manifesting Napoleon Hill and manifesting Neville Goddard and so on, and cooking and gardening and Eclectic Alchemy. That is a variety channel. So please subscribe, join me at Beverly Fells Joans on YouTube, and just enjoy. So what was I saying before I did my little tiny commercial? Oh, why did I choose that song? Well, it's because today's reading from Manifestations, True Stories of Bringing the Imagined into Reality is named, "Oh Lord, Won't You Buy Me a Mercedes-Benz?" It is by AJ Cavanagh. And when I was reading her story, when Spirit said, "This is the one you're going to record next," I said I need to find the song. And I knew that the original one was by Janis Joplin, and for those of you who know Janis Joplin, you know that distinct voice. So looking at this, AJ Cavanagh, I want to just kind of like thank you for bringing that one to my attention, because it had been a long time since I saw that or heard that song. And it is absolutely perfect for today's reading. So just let's get started. "Oh Lord, Won't You Buy Me a Mercedes-Benz" by AJ Cavanagh. When I was a child, my dad would say I could pull rabbits out of hats. It was his way of saying I could swiftly manifest the things that brought me joy. Most kids do. They usually don't have any thoughts opposite to what they want, unlike most adults. "Of course you got that," he would say. Or, "What are the chances of him finding that?" Was it all good luck, the innocence of childhood, or a simple matter of timing and synchronicity? In 1992, I moved out of home and out of the country to live and work in Canada. I had a steady job, a decent apartment, and an old Mazda that got me from A to B. I had made myself a new life and was fascinated by how thoughts turned into things. I remember being out with my friend Beverly. No, it wasn't me. When a line from the Janis Joplin song sprang to mind. "I've worked hard all my life. Oh Lord, won't you buy me a Mercedes-Benz?" We laughed, and right then I decided to offer the universe a challenge. "If the law of attraction is real, then I want a Mercedes-Benz," I said out loud. We both chuckled and sang the song's familiar verse satirically, but I was serious. Asking for a Mercedes-Benz was the most unlikely thing I could request. My menial salary made the challenge a good one. I knew I couldn't afford it then or any time soon. We laughed it off, but the idea stuck. From then on, every time I was out in my old Mazda, I pretended I was driving a Benz. I imagined the experience of sitting in large leather seats and the joy of coasting down the highway. The fun part in my asking was it did not come from lack or longing. Listen to this, listeners. Listen to this closely. The fun part in my asking was it did not come from lack or longing. So many of us, when we're asking for something, it's because we're longing for it, or we want it because we don't have it, or we feel that we're lacking joy or we're lacking something. So he wasn't doing it from that emotional place. Pay attention. What he says is, it came from a belief that an abundant universe would provide. You know, many of us have said, and you may have said a lot of times, the Lord will provide. You know, just trust in the Lord, He will provide. The universe will provide. And that's me saying that. All right, he says it came from a belief that an abundant universe would provide. Let me continue. I loved allowing myself to play big by wishing for something as grand as a Mercedes-Benz, and I imagined it existed somewhere and was already mine. So part two, or is that part three? Number one, he wasn't doing it from lack or longing, right? He had a belief in an abundant universe would provide. And he imagined that it was already here. Three very important things. No lack, abundance, and it was his. Let's go on. Let's see what else he decided. I decided not to worry about how I was going to get it and focus instead on the experience of owning one. Another few months went by and I was still driving my used Mazda. And then the magic started. One afternoon, for a few seconds, I felt as if, okay, let me say this again. One afternoon, for a few seconds, I felt as if I actually was driving a Mercedes-Benz. The steering wheel seemed much larger and the car spacious. I remember thinking, I genuinely do feel this. But a few seconds later, the sensation was gone. I want to stop right there. So many of you had heard me talk about Neville Goddard. Neville Goddard says the same thing. When you want to manifest something, you need to feel it real. When you go into meditation, when you go into silence and you are visualizing having what you are asking for. So being, doing, having what you ask for, it has to, when you come out of that, it has to have felt actually as though it was real. And sometimes that's hard. But as he said, he had been doing it for a while, in fact, a few months. And then all of a sudden, he felt as though he was actually driving that Mercedes-Benz. His imagination kicked in really strong. You know, think about when you were a kid and you imagined, I was imagining being a school teacher or being a teacher, which I am today. Or imagining if you were a fireman or a policeman or a lawyer or a doctor or a dancer or an actress, right? Or an actor of some kind. It was real to you. And many of the people, when they did it so real as a child, they are it when they are an adult. Okay, so he said, but a few seconds later, the sensation was gone, and that was okay. He had it for a few seconds. So let's go on with his story. Then disaster struck, or so it seemed. One Saturday morning, I turned the ignition and nothing happened. Not even a click. Beverly sent over her mechanic. I'll have to tow it back to the shop, he said. I can't see why it won't start. The next day he called. Your car is ready to be picked up. It started today, no problems. Great. I arrived at his shop soon after, and to my astonishment, saw my old Mazda parked beside no less than 5 Mercedes-Benz cars. I laughed and said, I'm amazed you have all these. It's been a dream of mine to own one. And then he told me a precious little story. His shop was around the corner from a popular Chinese restaurant, whose owner had a liking for Mercedes-Benz. No, a compulsion for Mercedes-Benz. I'm working on these for the owner who collects them. If you want one, I can sell you this. He pointed to an older, dark blue classic with a caramel leather interior. He signed it over to me last week as payment, but it's taking up space here in the lot. You can have it. Okay, guys, you ready for this? You can have it for $2,100. That's how much I've put into it. It seemed the law of attraction had brought me a Mercedes-Benz after all. Now listen, the guy is selling it to him only for how much money he put into it. He's not even trying to make a profit on it, right? His car wouldn't start. He gets towed to this location that just happened to have all these Mercedes-Benz in it. For me and for AJ, this was not a coincidence. So he goes on, and that's when my manifesting revved into top gear. I needed $2,100 in less than a week. So now we got a time frame. That's one of the things Napoleon Hill says. When you have a goal, you need a time frame on it. And so he said, and was able to sell my Mazda for the original price I paid for it almost 2 years earlier. I love this. Which coincidentally was $2,100. From then on, there was no doubting the law of attraction, for it had delivered. Now, when you think about it, he'd driven his car for 2 years. He's 2 years older. He gets the opportunity to buy a Mercedes-Benz for the amount of money that a person put into it in repairs. So now we got a running Mercedes-Benz. Yes, it's an older version, as he said, but $2,100? And then to be able to sell his vehicle for the same amount of money? Now, that's not just synchronicity. That is the universal mind, infinite wisdom, working in your favor. And the key for me was when he had that feeling that he actually was driving the Mercedes-Benz. He was in abundance. He was not in lack. He was feeling as though it was already his. He had all the components. It just needed to show up. He goes on. I loved that car and enjoyed telling others the story of how it came to me when my time-worn Mazda mysteriously wouldn't start. Now, like the guy said, your car is ready, picked up. It started today. No problems. He didn't even have to fix it, right? The guy? Yeah, but it needed to be towed to the location where the Mercedes were, right? So the engine stopping was divine intervention as far as I'm concerned, and as far as AJ is too. A few years later, I moved back to Australia for a new opportunity and had to sell the beloved Benz. Back in Australia, my dad let me use his car until I could find a car for myself. I thought, I wonder if I could do it again, and then let the idea go as perhaps pushing my luck. But I was astonished to see only a few days later a Mercedes-Benz for sale in our neighborhood. And you want to know what? This is too cool. This is really too cool. It was the same make, model, year, and color inside out as the Mercedes I had left back in Vancouver. I rushed home and told my parents excitedly, "You'll never guess." And my dad replied, "There he goes, pulling rabbits out of hats again. The price was right, and a week it was mine." And AJ goes on to explain a few other things, But I want to save these last couple of paragraphs for you to come back and read because he wraps up his story very nicely. So, is there something that you want, that you desire? Is there a car in your life? For me, it was a truck. And I've told the story of getting the truck many times. Is it a house? Is it a certain piece of furniture? And I'm just bringing these things up because these are things that I've manifested. So bring it to your life. This weekend, I manifested my son and his family being at the campground with me. And on Saturday, I just loved it. They came up for a day, and it was as I visualized it. It was my grandchildren, and just it was wonderful. And I enjoyed every minute of it until the introvert in me was ready for quiet. And they left just about the time that I needed that calmness, that quietness in my life. But I manifested them coming to camp. This is Beverly Fells Jones. Please leave a note below and talk about some things that you may have manifested in your life. And don't forget to get the book, Manifestations, True Stories of Bringing the Imagined into Reality. The link to buy the book is in the description, and I want you to take the time to subscribe,